I want you to brace yourself, because this is going to be a very long video. Welcome to my honest review of Need for Speed Payback. Today we're going to talk about everything I've learned about the game in my, I don't know, like 5 days worth of playtime now, or roundabouts. I have finished the game twice, both on hard and medium on PS4 and Xbox One, and I have got a lot to say about the game. Now obviously I can't speak on the PC port because I haven't played it, so all my experience is from the PS4 version and the Xbox One S version of the game. Obviously not PS4 Pro or Xbox One X. I'm literally speaking about those two consoles. We're going to talk about everything in this video. We're going to talk about the single player, the multiplayer, the end game, the microtransactions, the physics, the customization, like literally everything, the story, because I have a lot to say about this. So get your popcorn, get your pussy, because it's time to get straight into this video. So firstly, let's go ahead and talk about the single player, because there's a lot to say about the single player in this game. I think it only makes sense to start off and talk about the story, because that is kind of the main thing which Need for Speed Payback has kind of sold itself around. It's kind of one of its unique USPs, and I've got a very differing opinion to most people of what I think about the story. I think it's awful. I honestly think it's one of the worst stories I've played in a Need for Speed game. Not quite on the same level as Need for Speed Rivals, because I don't think you can get much more worse than that, but it just reminded me so much of 2015 in terms of how cheesy it was and how lack of the lack of grit that was in the story from what I expected from all the trailers and stuff really wasn't there. I was expecting to go back to kind of, you know, Most Watch 2005, I am really mad at you and I want to kill you, but realistically we didn't get that. I very much got the vibe that I got from 2015, where everyone wants to be friends and everyone wants to hold your hand. At the start, there's so many plot holes as well, but that's not something which I'm going to nitpick too much about because it's Need for Speed. But this is what I don't understand. At the start of the game, Lena Navarro, who is the main kind of evil person, at least I think, the story wasn't told very well, so she blows up your house and your car to do what? Like, if she just waited a few seconds and waited for you to get in the house, she could have just killed you or Tyler. So like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Little inconsistencies like that really make no sense. Towards the start of the game, you also kind of pick up Lena. I'm pretty sure you could have easily drove her away, or like drove the car into a lake and just killed her. Like, a lot of it just doesn't make sense. I was expecting something really gritty, really underground, really homegrown, home roots, and that's something I think 2015 did well, which not a lot of people talk about. You know, it felt underground, it felt illegal. Even though everyone was friends, it still felt like I was doing something wrong. In this, it feels like the leagues we're racing in, because you go up against many leagues in this game, street leagues. It feels like it's Pro Street, and it feels like it's an organized event. It doesn't feel illegal, and that might be because of the lack of cop presence, which we'll talk about later, but it didn't hit the nail on the head with me. I didn't connect with any of the characters. In future games, I want to see all these characters binned, and I want to see them start from the beginning and have another go at this. The blockbuster missions are really, really cool, some of the most highlights and some of the standout moments in the game, but it doesn't really make up for just how bad the characters are and how over the top cheesy it is. I feel like they're trying too hard to be cheesy. Yes, Most Wanted was cheesy. Yes, Need for Speed Underground 2, Underground 1 and Carbon, they were all cheesy. But it feels like now it's super cheese. Like, if you got the rating here of no cheese, low cheese, medium cheese, high cheese, and then you've got super cheese. I would say that Most Wanted 2005 was like in the middle between medium and high cheese. This is off the radar. This is ridiculous. I'm pretty sure at one point, like in the game, like if you just take a jump, Mac will just go, ha, sick. Who the fuck says that? Now, like I said, there is a few things I enjoyed about the story. Some of the kind of fan things they put in there, like having Noise Bomb in there was really cool, and seeing a few characters from older games kind of be mentioned or return was really cool. The blockbuster missions were easily a standout for me, and that's something which I know for a lot of people, they won't forget, though some of them were really, really cool, but the lack of them also was a bit of an issue, and how short the story was, in my opinion, also didn't really help. If the whole game is based around the story, you've got to make sure that is absolutely immense and just really, really polished, but I didn't really get that vibe. There's a lot of plot holes. For a game that's selling itself on its single player experience, didn't really do much for me. Let's talk about progression, because again, this is something which I actually personally really have a differing opinion from most people. Since the game's been out, it's had multiple patches, and I've played through every single patch that has come out for Need for Speed Payback, and I can say currently on the 27th of November, I love the progression in this game. As you're progressing through the game, it's not too slow, it's not too fast, you unlock cars as you should, and by the end of the game, you should have enough money to pretty much do whatever you want, provided you haven't been silly with your money and you've just splashed it everywhere. If you have, chances are, as you're playing through the game, you're probably not going to be able to afford the Regera by the end, or you're not going to be able to afford a Huayra BC. The game really does promote playing the game and actually making progress. The whole speed card system we'll talk about in a minute, but you know, as a whole, the progression's really good. The way you unlock cars is really good. The fact cars are actually locked is really, really good. I like the progression as a whole. I've got a few issues with some of the unlocking and stuff, but we'll talk about that a bit later. As a whole, the progression is really good. The way you unlock things as you go through the game, again, I've got no problems with that. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about replay value, because this is something which I think is sorely lacking from the single player. For me, with a single player, replay value is something which is so important. If a game is based around a single player experience, which it seems like this was sold on, then the replay value for the single player has to be there. And sadly for me, it doesn't offer anything which other Need for Speed games haven't. Autolog has been in pretty much every Need for Speed, I think since Hot Pursuit or maybe Shift. One of the two, you get what I'm saying. So I can't say that Autolog really adds that much more replay value when games have had this for a very long time, and other games have this as well. Now, yes, it does add replay value, but if you don't have any friends that play Need for Speed, that means nothing to you, because why would you want to beat a random person's score? For me, it has added a lot of playtime, and this is something which is very dependent on who you are as a person. For me, it has, because I have a lot of friends that play Need for Speed. I'm a Need for Speed channel, so of course that's going to be the case. You know, I've been drifting a lot, I've been racing a lot. I actually really enjoy the racing over the drifting this time, which is a complete contradiction to what it was last game, where I would be drifting more. But replay value is one of those things. If you aren't into autolog, there's really not much to do in the single player besides redoing events. It really depends who you are. If you like grinding for parts, if you like upgrading cars, if you like building cars, there's probably going to be a lot of replay value. If you like making wraps, if you like doing all that kind of stuff, there's going to be a lot of replay value in this. But if you're coming and you're expecting to have replay value in the races and stuff, outside of autolog, I can't really say there's an awful lot. One thing which has added a lot of replay value is the collectibles in the open world, so the drift zones, the speed traps, the bait crates, all that kind of stuff. That has added a lot of replay value for me. I honestly do class the bait crates as a collectible because it's not really a specific mode for me. It's more like a time trial with police that if you see it, you'll just go ahead and do it. And I'll talk about that in a bit later with under the cop section. But the replay value for me really does lie in autolog. So if autolog isn't your type of thing, you have been warned. Another thing I want to talk about kind of comes under the progression and the replay value is the value of money versus part rolls. I personally believe money doesn't have that much value compared to part rolls. If you know what part rolls are, I'll link a video down in the description which explains the performance upgrade system. But essentially, I feel like part rolls have much more significance than money in this game. There's nothing wrong with how much money you get, and there's nothing wrong with, you know, the progression with the money and how much money you get. I think that's perfect for someone who, you know, I'm not the average Joe. I play Need for Speed a lot more than others, and I'm struggling to find time to really play this game, and I still have 5 days. The game's been out for what, 3 weeks? So, you know, I play a lot more than the average Joe. That says a lot, and I can't dedicate my whole life to playing this game. And it's one of those things with money, I've really started to notice. And I've got like $1 million on both platforms. Like, I've earned a lot of money. I've probably earned millions over the time I played Payback. But my point is, I only really use my money to buy cars and customize cars. Everything else really lies in the part rolls, or maybe buying a few base parts for the car just so I can get started. It's very weird how money really doesn't have that big of an effect on this game, and I'd honestly much prefer it if part rolls were just switched for a money currency, because it'd make a lot more sense. Part rolls are an unneeded middleman, which I don't want to see in any future Need for Speed game, just because I think it's really unneeded. It's not something which I'm going to go out and say that I hate and it's really annoying. It's just a bit, yeah, it is just a bit of an annoyance more so than anything else. The fact that I can't just go ahead and just use my money, which I've done, because it just feels like money doesn't have much worth again, which was an issue that the last game had as well, and that's something which I would like to see addressed. That doesn't mean make it a full-on grind and get rid of part rolls and make it really hard to, you know, upgrade my cars. That just means, you know, instead of having so many currencies, just make money there, and instead of having 3 part rolls for a spin, make it 10 grand, and that completely solves all my issues. Right, so next we're going to go ahead and talk about the cops. I imagine you probably already know what I'm going to say with the cops. There really doesn't feel like there's much presence. Now, don't get me wrong, they have been improved. When they appear in abundance. I genuinely believe that the cops in this game are the best we've had in a very, very long time, but that doesn't excuse the fact that the presence of them in the general game and the atmosphere is really lacking. We all know that there's no free roaming cops in this game. It's a subject which has really been beaten to death. And obviously, I think you all know what I'm going to say here. I want to see it in there. I'd also like to see the fact for heat levels to return. Obviously, heat levels aren't a thing in this game, and that's something which I really honestly miss. It makes a lot more sense. You know, I never really understood when I was being busted in this game. So what will happen is, you know, the screen will go blue and red and you have a certain amount of time to kind of leave them before you get busted. But without a meter or without like a little bar to show you that you're being busted, it's the most confusing thing. And the fact they're scripted, so you're gonna lose them regardless of what happens anyway, especially in bait crates. It just makes me not want to really touch the cops. Honestly, if cops weren't in this game, I wouldn't feel any way about it. I wouldn't mind. It wouldn't bother me. I'm someone that really enjoyed Underground 2, but at the same time, I enjoyed Most Wanted. So I can leave those cops in the past. Like, it doesn't really bother me, but I completely understand why people would want it in this game, and I completely understand why free roam and heat levels are such a big issue. To be honest, I think heat levels and free roam cops are on the same level of a problem in this game. I think I would love to see both of those things return with each other, because they really do go hand in hand. And yes, like, free roam is an issue, but I think the fact that there's no heat levels really in this game is a much bigger issue. If you don't mind playing a time trial with cops on, then you're going to love bait crates and you're going to love what this game has to offer. In the story mode, the cops are amazing. That's what I want to see consistently in this game. You know, they really try to go for you, you know, roadblocks and everything. Really, really cool. But outside of that, there's really not much presence. Little things that annoy me about the cops include the fact that rhinos are scripted, and it actually even tells you when a rhino's coming, which completely avoids the point in a rhino coming, because it literally gives you a prompt on screen saying rhino incoming. Spike strips actually don't really do much damage because your tires reinflate, which I think is a stupid idea. I think that really just takes the whole point out of a spike strip if you know that your tire is going to inflate. For me, I will never, ever, ever try to do a U-turn now like I would in older games to avoid a spike strip, purely based off the fact I know that my tire is going to reinflate after about 20 seconds. I think that's a huge issue, and I don't think a lot of people really realize that is a big issue. I personally much prefer it how it was in older games, where if you go over spike strip, that is game, set, match, and that is going to ruin you. The fact there's really no risk or reward by being busted, it means nothing. You just restart, and that's all there is to it. I think that's something which I sorely miss as well from other games. I want the cops to take away my car if I lose it. If I get 3 strikes, I want to be out. Like, that car, I shouldn't have that car anymore. That's just how I see things. I'm a very old school person with that kind of train of thought, where I want you to punish me. If I'm going into a pursuit and I've got 2 impounds, and now I'm going into my 3rd one, knowing that I've got still 2 impounds on my thing, that should be a thing which, like, that just should be a thing in this game. There's no impound system, there's no heat system, no heat levels, there's no risk to reward with police. It just seems like a time trial where people are trying to hit you, in bait crates at least. And that is a problem. It's a huge problem. I think cops need to maybe completely rehauled again. I wouldn't say it's on the same level as the story. I think the story is a much bigger issue, because this game has been sold on its single player experience. But I do think, you know, heat levels, impounds, just risk and reward and making it feel a bit more gritty. The cops don't feel that gritty. I like the fact there's police chatter, and I like the fact that they are smart and they will try maneuvers like boxing you in and, you know, brake checking you. But it doesn't mean anything if there's no risk there, and it doesn't mean anything if I can just restart and there's no problem there. That's my biggest issue with the police. I think free roam is one thing, but the fact there's really no risk to reward with it is a completely another thing. And I think those problems need to be solved first. Cars. Let's talk about cars, because this is something which I just love from this game. We've talked about a few negative points. Let's go on to a few positive points. The variation in this game is ridiculous. You've got everything from 240SXs to Vulcans to Mustangs to Beetles. It's amazing. It's honestly amazing. Like, the variation for a Need for Speed game here is ridiculous. There's everything from pickup trucks to tuner cars to Euro cars to hypercars to supercars. The variation in this is amazing. If you are a car person or you even remotely like cars, there's going to be a car in this game which you like. And that's really all I have to say on the car list itself. We'll talk about customization a bit later, because obviously that's a completely different topic and it's such a big portion of the game. I want to kind of give it its own section. But one thing I will say is an issue with the cars or the car list is the balancing. If you've been following my channel over the past few days, you will know that the Regera and the RSR are OP in speedless. Now, this is as of now. Obviously, things can change, things can be patched, but as of now, there's a huge balancing issue in Need for Speed Payback, and hopefully this is something they're looking into, and it's just something which I want to see improved going forward. I'm not going to touch on that too much, because I do think that they probably will patch it, because it's just absurd at the moment. But this is something which you should know. Not all cars can be maxed out. Not all cars can be, you know, taken to 399, which is the max level in this game. That is also a big issue to do with the balancing, and we're going to talk more about that in the multiplayer section. But this is something which I thought is a bit of an issue, especially if you're an online player, because this is kind of one of the most kind of influential things which makes you pick a car for online. Because this is one of the most influential things which will make you pick a car for online. It's what's the best. If you get stomped on by a Regera, chances are you're not going to use your favorite car. And then if your car doesn't even get to 399, well, you literally can't use your favorite car. So that's just the thing I'd like to mention. You know, it's something where, like in the last game, there was such a big emphasis on, you know, picking your favorite car, building it going from scrap to supercar. They've even said that in this game with the derelicts. But in the last game, that was such a big thing. It was like, take your favorite car and make it into this. And it feel like from an element of that has kind of been taken away. I can't use my R32 Skyline online because A, all-wheel drive is a bit underpowered in this game, and B, well, it doesn't go to 399, so it wouldn't even stand a chance anyway. Multiplayer. So we're going to touch on balancing first, because I kind of already talked about that. Multiplayer, well, there's a lack of multiplayer to start off with. Balancing is an issue. Quickly touched on that a minute ago. Regera is OP, RSR is OP. Not all cars get to 399. With the off-road section of cars, there is such a lack of 399 off-road cars. I think there's like 4. This needs to be fixed. Hopefully it's something they're looking at. That's all I really have to say on the balancing. Where multiplayer really starts to show its problems is in the lack of modes. So there's obviously no online free roam. Everyone knows this is again something which has been beaten to death. There's no private lobbies. There's no non-contact mode. There's no cops and robbers mode. There's no party modes as a whole. The only thing you can do is race. You can't drift. You can't drag. You can't, you know, do police things. You can't muck around in the open world with your friends. I know this is something which they are looking at. They've mentioned multiple times on their Reddit that they're listening to people, so just keep the feedback coming, and I thoroughly believe that these are problems which will be solved, but as of now, there's a thorough lack of all of that. My multiplayer experience goes really as follows. You get rammed by a Regera, you get a crash cam, which shouldn't even be in the game to begin with, you're at the back of the pack, and then you have to go up and build your way through. It's got to the point where I've learned how people attack me so I can dodge them in the right way. It's like GTA Online, to be honest. In GTA Online, I played so much of that in the early days of racing that I knew when to handbrake to kind of clip them off, and it's kind of similar in Need for Speed, except sometimes, especially in the off-road, because with it being so unpredictable, you literally can't. Online multiplayer is something which is really important to me. It's something which really honestly gives me so much replay value after endgame. I think the main reason why I've been playing so much autolog is because of the lack of online multiplayer and the lack of competitive. Ranked mode isn't really ranked mode because you need a Regera to win, and it's sad. And there's so many underlying issues, like little miscellaneous issues, which I'll talk about in a minute, like flying in the air after going over a curb, like clipping issues. It just makes it really just not fun to play. The reason why I go back to Payback every day is to play the single player and to play autolog and just to, you know, mess around with times and friends. Like, I'll get in a Skype call with friends and I'll be like, oh, we should go and do this and see who can get the fastest time. That is why I play Payback now, and to build cars. I love building cars on this game. In fact, today's video was going to be me just building my kind of next car, what I want to get, because I love doing that. It's something for me, you know, being able to express myself through this. It's something which is really important to me. Online multiplayer is lacking hugely, without a doubt. The most disappointing thing that comes out of all is, I know I trashed on the single player a bit, and I know that I trashed on the cops a bit. I'm trying to get all the bad points out of the way with first, so we can go into the good points a bit later. But the multiplayer, without a doubt, is the thing that I am truly disappointed by, and one thing which I really do hope they fix, and I know for a fact that they're listening. So let's hope that they can keep this coming, and what they've said on the Reddit and stuff is true. Right, let's go on to some positive things, because, you know, we talked about a lot of negatives so far. Let's go ahead and talk about the physics. Oh my god. They are so much better. So much better than 2015. Well, not the off-roading, but we can talk about that in a minute. I have so much fun racing in this game. I am one that does not mind brake to drift. I thoroughly believe brake to drift is the main way to play this game. It's the way it was intended to play. The reason why all the races in this game are on windy tracks is because the game is made for brake to drift. If you are looking to grip in this game, it is possible, but there's definitely an extreme disadvantage. This game was built around brake to drift, and I'm 100% confident on that. I don't know that for a fact. That is me speculating. But if you can find an explanation to why all the speedless races are on windy tracks and not in little city areas, you can explain that to me. I think it's because brake to drift. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the racing, the drifting, and the drag modes are amazing. I don't know whoever thought drag racing was a good idea on a circuit. That was not a good idea. But when you're actually drag racing in drag races, absolutely, like, it's the most fun I've had in drag races in a game in a very long time. Drifting. I was one that loved drifting in the last game. It's been greatly improved. Again, there's balancing issues with the Hurricane, but besides that, the actual way the cars feel and stuff, I love it. It would be nice if there was a bit more throttle control in the drifting and a bit more kind of responsiveness and a bit less arcadey, just so there's a bit more skill involved with it. But realistically, to squeeze out a little bit more points, like in drifting in some of the drift events. So much fun. Autolog has provided me with so much replay value in that aspect, and I've got to say the drifting, absolutely amazing. But where this game really shines for me in the physics department is the racing. If you can get past the clipping issues by going over curbs and stuff, if you can get past, you know, phasing through traffic, if you can get past all of that, the racing is amazing. When the racing works, it's the best racing I have done in a video game in years. I know it seems like it's really easy, and it is easy to pick up, hard to master. I know that's like a catchphrase which I seem to say all the time, but it really is. To be able to manipulate the way you go into corners and keep one swinging long drift going into a corner, for me, is something which is so fun. I love it. I honestly love the racing in this game. It's so intense, and with autolog, it adds so much replay value to me, and I'm constantly trying to get #1 on my leaderboards for that exact reason. I do think grip racing is almost non-existent in this game. It's quite clear they haven't really done too much with that. It's much better than 2015. I personally believe that grip in 2015 is drag in this game, and that drift in this game is still drift. And in the middle, that's kind of where the kind of grip mode is in this game, or stability control on, it's called. I would like to see that be completely rehauled. I think that's the only way of really improving it. I can't see how turning a switch, increasing the turning angle, is going to change things, because cars will still drift faster. Exiting drifts with a little boost, it's always going to just be faster. The game is built around brake to drift. I don't think it's going to leave anytime soon, and like I said, I'm impartial to it. I don't really mind it too much, but there's definitely a big imbalance between the two, and I think the only way to fix grip in this game is to honestly just redo it. We're on the level of arcade and simulation. I think Need for Speed should be here on that kind of that bar. Currently, it's all the way to the right with the grip to drift, or brake to drift, sorry. I don't have a problem with that, but I do think taking a few cues from the older games, for example, Underground, even Shift, like those games, I think it would go a long way. If you are expecting to be able to not brake to drift in this game and get through the story on hard, you won't be able to, trust me. But overall, it doesn't take away from the fact that the race, drift, and drag physics are amazing. The only problem I have with the physics lies in the off-roading. It feels like 2015, but worse. Oh my lord. The amount of times my car just fishtails and loses control and goes into a fucking rock, and I get a crash cam and it goes black for like 20 seconds. Oh my god, don't even get me started. There's a section in the career mode where you have to face a street league called Fem. If you do that on hard, you are going to have an aneurysm. I wouldn't mind if off-roading was completely scrapped from Need for Speed. Again, it comes back to this idea of it being grassroots and being legal and underground. I wouldn't mind having the next game purely just focus on the on-road aspect, the drifting aspect, and the drag racing aspect. I would not mind if the off-road wasn't a thing in this game, or whether like the specs weren't a thing in the next game. I wouldn't mind if they did it the underground way, where your car's physics change depending on what race you're going in. I just hate the off-roading in this game. I really do. I try to avoid it at all costs in speedless. If I ever see it coming up, I would never vote for it. When I do see it, I'm always like, oh, off-road race, I just don't like it. I really don't like it. I want to see it either removed or greatly improved. It only really seems to be an issue the further you get into the game with higher powered cars. It seems like the game can't really handle higher powered cars for off-roading. So that's something that I want to see touched upon. Honestly, wouldn't mind if it was just scrapped, to be honest. I haven't gone back to off-roading. Like, my off-road cars are still not 399. I got one card 399 on PS4, and I didn't even bother on Xbox. I just played it on easy and got through it because I didn't really want to do the off-roading. So it's an issue that I had when the game was first announced. It was a problem which I had when the game was first announced, and it's still a thing which is a thing to this day. But besides that, the physics are amazing. It's just the off-roading. It feels like 2015 on ice, and that's the only way I can really explain it. And I know that off-roading is supposed to be kind of like you're supposed to slide around and stuff, but the way it is, you know, when the car fishtails, there's no way you're going to save that unless you come to a full stop, and that's just it, really. Customization. Let's go ahead and talk about that for a bit. Amazing. Absolutely fantastic. Mix and match is a huge thing in this game. Unlike the last game, there is a lot less restrictions. There still is restrictions, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But there's a lot less restrictions in this game which allow you to just completely transform your cars. Even if cars have a lack of bumpers, you can still mix and match parts to the point where you can give it a million different types of variations, and that's really cool. And for some of the cars which have a ton of bumpers, amazing. Obviously, not every single car is going to be fair, and obviously some cars are going to have less than others, and that's not really an issue for me. With my R32, I know there's a lack of fenders and a few bumpers here and there, but what I've done with it, I really just completely love. And obviously, it's just, they've only had 2 years. They can't really do that. So I'm not judging the customization. I think it's amazing. The fact there's neon, horns, airbags, the fact, you know, there's headlight tints and tail light tints that weren't really a thing in the last game. All of that, amazing. The vinyl editor does have some issues, like some mapping issues and stuff, but again, besides that, it's one of the best vinyl editors I've used. Again, issues, there is issues with the community aspect of the vinyl editor, but the actual vinyl editor itself and the stickers on offer and how easy to use it is. I'm not one really to make vinyls and stuff, but in this game, I love it. My only real issue with the customization is the part sets. It feels like it's a step back to 2015 with the restrictions. Again, if they could get to a place where there's no restrictions and no part sets and you can literally just put on whatever you want to put on, that would be amazing. But I know licensing issues are a thing, but that is still a thing which I would want to mention because part sets are annoying. They are annoying. The fact I can't, you know, mess around with my BRZ with the Rocket Mini kit and stuff because of the part sets, it just feels like it was a way around the restrictions for some parts, and it's just a bit more annoying than anything else. Honestly, my only issue with the customization, really, that and, you know, the wheel clipping, which we'll talk about a bit later, and the track width and stuff. But obviously I think that's an issue to do with the air suspension, because obviously when the air suspension goes all the way down, if your wheels are poking out, that's going to clip through the fender. But that, you know, that's a completely different story for a different day. The customization as a whole is amazing. The only bad point I can think of is the part sets. Let's go ahead and talk about microtransactions, because again, this is something which is really interesting. I know it's got a lot of people talking. They have been done very, very well. You can completely avoid the microtransactions in this game and get along fine, and I will stand by that, and I believe that thoroughly. But that doesn't excuse the fact that I think that the microtransactions in this game have no place in Need for Speed. I just hate the fact neons and airbags and horns and nitrous color are all put behind this shipments method, and I can't buy shipments with in-game credits. It's just annoying, and this is coming from someone who has a lot of these. Like, the amount of times you get shipments, especially if you play the game pretty constantly, there's a lot. You get a lot of shipments in this game, but I just don't really see like why it's there. I understand if they give away free DLC, and I understand all that kind of stuff, but having seen what Gran Turismo's doing, where they're literally giving away free stuff, and that game has no microtransactions, I don't know how they're doing it, but like, it just makes me think, like, why aren't more companies doing that? For those that don't know, Gran Turismo are basically putting in a bunch of new cars and modes for free. There's nothing else to it. There's no microtransactions. There's no like anything like that. They are literally putting in stuff for free. I don't know how they're doing it, but if Need for Speed could do that with a corporate power like EA behind them, you know, that would be amazing. But then again, who knows? We obviously don't know what they're going to do with DLC. We know there's a Gymkhana pack coming up soon because that was in the pre-order bonuses for the deluxe edition. We just have to wait and see really what comes with the microtransactions. It's not a thing which will interrupt your gameplay, but it's something which I would like to see removed, just because I don't think loot boxes and the RNG system really needs to be a thing. Going to the upgrade system, I know I haven't really touched on this much, and I wasn't actually going to mention it in the section, but since I'm here now, I'm going to mention it. The RNG in the upgrade system is just unneeded. I want to see it removed. I want to see 2015s come back. Maybe just bring 2015s, but make the parts a bit more expensive. That is the best way of doing things for me. I don't like the fact that it's completely random. I do think there should be some type of like grind to get really good parts, but I don't want to have to put 200 part tokens in a virtual slot machine to get a level 18 part with nitrous, brakes, and acceleration. That's how I see it. I don't like playing slot machines. I'm not a gambler. At least I don't think I am. The point is, I just like to see that removed. It's one of those things. It's just a bit more annoying than anything else. I know Ghost probably realizes by now because it's been a consistent thing which a lot of people have moaned about. It's something which I can get past. It's something I don't mind. But it's one of those things that, yeah, I definitely would like to see removed. I like to see the old system come back. You know, the way 2015 did it in older games like Underground, where you have Street, Pro, and Ultimate and stuff. It's just much better in my opinion. It wasn't broken. It didn't really need fixing. If anything, it just needed to be a bit more expensive, and there needed to be a bit more grind to get the best parts. Besides that, honestly, I don't have anything else to say about the RNG system in this game. Right, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about just like miscellaneous issues. These are the kind of issues which I couldn't really put in any of the other sections, so it's just kind of in this like little other section, and we're going to quickly glance through all this, and then we're going to talk about what I want to see from the future of Need for Speed Payback and the future of Need for Speed. Crash cams need to go, and the takedown system in this game needs to go. It is a thing. I know they said at some point that it wasn't, but it is. You just basically just spin out a few times, the game goes black and resets you. Remove it. I don't need to see that. That should stay in Burnout. That is not a Need for Speed thing. I know it has been for many years now. It needs to be removed. Needs to go. I hate it. Just make it so select is my reset button. Let me do it. You know, you don't need to do that for me. It's just not needed. Clipping. Firstly, we're going to go ahead and talk about the world clipping. So if you have played Speedless, you will know that you will fly in the air sometime. You will fly up in the air sometimes. Yeah, so you will fly up in the air sometimes if you just kind of go over a curb in a weird way. That's not a thing which should be a thing, really. I'm not sure if this is a frostbite issue. I'm not sure if it's just a clipping issue, but it's one of those things needs to be solved, because in many situations I've been in Speedless where I literally can't finish the race, or I've lost first place because the game has literally teleported me into the air. With Speedless as well, I know there's a lot of people have had checkpoint issues where you'll go through a checkpoint and it just won't register. Wheel clipping when you're with air suspension, for some reason with some cars, they get so low, it actually clips through the ground. This is something which is very hard to solve because of how many variables there are. It's just an issue which I thought I'd mention. I don't expect it to be fixed, and to be honest, I do feel like there's a lot of other things on this review list that I think need to be fixed before this. It's just something that I thought I'd mention. Texture popping on PS4 and Xbox One on the base consoles is still a thing. I know they patched it, but even after the patch, it's still a thing which I see very frequently, especially in Speedless and when the game first loads in. I can't speak on lower end PCs, but I'd imagine it'd probably be a similar thing. The lack of tracks is also another thing. You'll tend to kind of race the same tracks over and over and over again. It'd be nice if there's a few more tracks in this game. It's very weird as well. There's not many city tracks in this game for some reason, which is a bit annoying, because again, I feel like city tracks and city racing are one of the most amazing things in this game, and one of the most amazing things that Need for Speed brings. But again, that revolves around the fact that this game is it kind of revolves around brake to drift, so they kind of have to go out to these country roads and use the winding tracks and stuff. But even then, there's a lack of that as well. So seeing more city variation, seeing more tracks as a whole would be something which would be really cool. I think as a whole, the game just feels a bit unpolished. This is something which I think a lot of people have realized. You know, all the issues I mentioned about the clipping and the checkpoints not working. You know, the little things about the cars being imbalanced, the little things, all of that kind of stuff. It just feels a bit unpolished in my opinion. I'd much prefer with the next game if they went in with a focus and they made a polished game instead of being very ambitious. I appreciate the fact that Ghost has been really ambitious, but it just feels unpolished, and I know these things can be solved post-launch, but it's one of those things, it should work out the box. Now, with all this being said, I still think Payback is one of the best Need for Speed games to be made since Hot Pursuit 2010. From a critical standpoint, this game is head and shoulders better than 2015. It's not even a question, and it's some of the most fun I've had since Hop Shoot 2010. And I'm kind of open to all the Need for Speeds. I come in with an open mind to all my Need for Speed games, and this is still one of the best in a very, very long time. I've mentioned a lot of the problems because I want it to get better, and I know that Ghost might listen to my voice, so I'm trying to just make it a bit out there more so than another reviewer would. But you know, I'm not going to give it a score or anything, but I'm definitely going to say if you enjoy 2015, you're going to enjoy this a bunch more and then some. One of the best Need for Speeds to come out, even with all these issues, in a very, very long time. And I can quite gladly say, with the game actually being on sale right now, I think you should buy this game if you enjoyed 2015. If you like what you've seen and what you've seen from the gameplays and stuff, especially with it being on sale, you're going to really enjoy this game, and I honestly highly recommend it. And that's coming from me. I like to think I come from a neutral standpoint. Obviously, I've had links and contacts with Ghost and EA and stuff, but I try to be as neutral as possible, and that is my honest opinion after about 5 days of playtime. Now, I'm going to quickly glance over what I want to see from the future from Payback and for the future from Need for Speed. I'm going to make a separate video on this because there's a lot more I want to say about this. I'm just going to quickly glance over, you know, a few things which I'd like to see. Pink slips are something which is not available in this game. Wages as a whole. The whole side bet system isn't really risk to reward because the pay-in is so low. Risk to reward, wages, pink slips, I want to see in the game. I know with microtransactions, that's a legal minefield if you know, put in the microtransactions stuff, but that can easily be solved. Pink slips. Wages, online wages is something I want to see. That would be amazing. All the buggy miscellaneous issues, like what I said about the polish of the game, so you know, the clipping issues and stuff, they all need to be fixed sooner rather than later. There's so many big issues with this game, like the kind of little bugs there's so many little bugs, it becomes a big problem. And if you fix all these little problems, that problem will fade away. And I think that's something which needs to be solved for this game. Obviously, with the next game, I hope it's already solved because it should be. But all these buggy, like miscellaneous issues, needs to be solved as well. More focus on multiplayer. I feel like that's something which they didn't focus on. I feel like they focused on the single player heavily in this game. I want to see more focus on multiplayer. That doesn't mean don't put effort in the story and don't put effort in, you know, the single player experience and the story and stuff, because the story is still very, very important. But you know, just add cops and robbers, you know, add all these things which people want. And, you know, online free roam and, like, free burn challenges would be really cool, like, from Burnout Paradise, that kind of element where you can go in, you've got 4 players, and you have to get on top of a crane for, like, 30 seconds and go off into it. Like, those sorts of things. Really, really cool. In future games, I'd like to see a real emphasis on grittiness, underground, like, stuff like drug dealers and, like, all that kind of stuff. Maybe not drug dealers, but you know what I mean. Take me back to, like, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, you know. And that leads me perfectly on to my last point. The next game, I want to see it in Japan. It's about time Need for Speed switches up their location. They've been in America for Lord knows how long, and I've been screaming for Japan for so long. And I think now they're in the perfect position for the next game. Let's see Japan. Let's see Tokyo. Let's just imagine driving through the middle of Tokyo with all the neon lights coming off the city center and just drifting along. Just like Tokyo Drift. Just imagine that in Frostbite on PC at Ultra. Imagine that E3 launch trailer. I honestly can't think of anything which would get me more excited. I would scream. That's one thing with this game which wasn't very memorable, especially in the promo stuff up until this game came out. I didn't really remember anything like I did with 2015. I will always remember Outlaw. Always. I'll always remember that from 2015. I will always remember Cops! And then just I'll always remember that from 2015. That was a moment that really resonated with me. It really hit me. I've never been that excited for a game to come out. I want to see something similar. And in the next game, if I come to E3 and if I see an Aventador with the doors up, with neon coming out of the doors in the middle of Japan, I will actually cry. I actually will cry. Like, that genuinely gets me fucking... Oh my lord. Japan. And don't worry, there's going to be more videos about that, because I need this. Why? It's the perfect place to go. And with that being said, that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I hope you guys, you know, kind of resonated with a lot of the points I said. I try not to be too overly negative. I try not to be too overly positive. I try to give a neutral review on this game. I know it's going to come out to like a 30-40 minute video. But I just hope you guys, you know, enjoyed what I had to say. If you made it this far, just type Japan in the comments. Just Japan. do it. I may have missed out a few things here and there. I tried to be as thorough as possible, and don't worry, I will be sending all this to Ghost and stuff. Like, I will be giving all my feedback and stuff, because this is important. I think there's a lot of issues which a lot of people aren't going to share. And I needed a long video to kind of express all this, because it is very, very kind of in-depth. Anyway, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys have been awesome. Stay safe, and peace.